My name is Gloria Peterson, and I was born in Woodlake, Nebraska in 1940. Well, my parents were both born in Nebraska, and we lived on a ranch. And my dad decided that he had about had enough of those Nebraska winters. So he was looking for a place to move his family and basically just, start over. He was an only child, and I was the youngest. So I was just a baby, but he packed us all up and brought us to Texas. And I've always been grateful to him for that. I think, of course, from Texas, I ended up here in Arkansas, and that's even better. But I've always just been grateful to him for making that decision to bring us to this part of the United States.
So talk about when you first came to Benton County. When was it and what was it like?
I first came to Benton County in 1974. And of course things were just totally different, back then from what they are now. I remember one of the first things I remember that I was so shocked by is we were on Highway 71, which was later renamed Walton Boulevard, and Central, and it was a stoplight. There wasn't a stoplight there was a stop sign. And of course I had come from a larger city, and I'm thinking, what have I come to? Because no stoplights, just stop signs, So it was a big adjustment coming to a smaller town, and it was, Bentonville then was, more rural. But, and then I remember we had a natural gas cook stove in the kitchen, and we had brought that with us. Well, of course, we were living out in the country at that time, close to Hiawassee, and there's no natural gas. So we called the propane company, and they said, well, we'll get to you when we come to Joe's. He lives about 2 miles down the road. So no date, no time, just, when they get to us. So it was really a big adjustment, but it's all turned out just to be wonderful. I love living here.
So tell me about your family and your siblings when you were living here. Or what age were you when you moved here, I guess?
Well, whenever I moved here, I was married and had 3 children. And they were all of young children at that time. And so the first thing that you think about is I've got to get them enrolled in school. So we go over to Hiawassee. That's where they would be going to school at that time. And they saw that school, and they said, we are not going to that school. It was so different from city life, I said, yes, you're going to that school. Well, they ended up just falling in love with that school. The first day they went, my middle son came home and he said, Mom, I've got a job at the school. I said, a job? He said, yes. I said, well, what kind of a job do you have? He said, I'm working in the cafeteria. And he said, I get to eat the leftovers. Oh, anyway, he was so happy he'd gotten his first job, So they learned to blend in, and of course they fell in love, with that school, and they ended up graduating from Gravitt, and so it all worked out wonderful.
When did you first get involved with, or let me ask you this way, tell me the jobs that you had that before you had ended up in the courthouse, working in the courthouse.
The job that I had in Amarillo before we came here, I was working at a hospital in the office, and that gave me a lot of experience working with, the patients, their families. And when we moved here, my mother-in-law suggested that I check at the courthouse for open positions. So I did. I talked to Emma Larson. He was the assessor, and he did have an open position. So he did hire me, and my salary was $500 a month. So I worked in the real estate portion of the assessor's office. And I had been there several months, and of course I found out, the other girls were telling me their salary, and it was more. And I thought, it's about time that I talked to him about my salary. So I did go to Mr. Larson, and I said, the rest of the girls are all making more than I am. And he said, that's because you're new. I said, okay, what would I have to do to get my salary increased? He said, well, your performance. He said, when I see that you really earn more and your performance warrants it, then we will talk about a raise. Well, that's all I needed. So I really paid attention, and I just really devoted myself to that job. And I had a really interesting job. What we did was the warranty deeds that were filed to change ownership on property. We had big aerial photos, which I think they still have in the assessor's office. And Beaver Lake had just came, and they had colored in Beaver Lake in blue on those aerial photos. So that was the way that you knew where Beaver Lake was. But our job was to draw on those aerial photos by the legal description, like part of the northeast to the southwest to the northwest, starting at the northeast corner so many feet. And we drew those sections of land out on that aerial photo. So it was a really interesting job.
And were those the ones that eventually they used to make the plat books?
Well, they're big aerial photos. They're very large. And
so you just hand drew them in based on the description? And
Yeah, we had instruments to use to draw those legal descriptions out. So you could see each person's piece of land. And of course we had a parcel number, and we put that parcel number on there, and that's how you would find that particular piece of land. So it was a really interesting job. And it wasn't long, Mr. Larson became ill, and he passed away. Then Joe Yates came in. He became state senator later, but he was assessor first, and then state rep, and then on to state senator. And he talked to me about being supervisor in that real estate department. So I received that promotion. So I really became interested in politics about that time, started going to the meetings, and met a lot of people, state people that were elected to office. So in 1974, Ray Jefferson, who was our county treasurer, made the decision to retire. So Joe Yates and several people from the Republican Party came to me and talked to me about running for county treasurer. So I did make that decision, and I won. My opponent was a lady that worked in the office for Mr. Jefferson. So we had quite a race, but I won by a small margin. And so it was a great campaign. I learned how to campaign, but campaigning was a lot of fun.
Back in those days, how did you campaign? I mean, where would you go and what would you do?
In campaigning for political office at that time, it was so much fun. All of those that were Republican candidates or Democrat candidates, they would all get together, and of course you had to be at every parade. Every little town had a parade. Bentonville had one, Rogers, Gentry, Pea Ridge, they all had parades. So you just had to be in those parades. So we would all just get different vehicles, little antique cars, or maybe we would get a pickup truck and put everybody's sign on it, put bales of hay in it, and we'd all sit in that pickup truck and ride in the parade. So it just kind of depended upon the circumstances what we did, but you were definitely in those parades. So it was just a lot of fun.
What about the people you would meet out in the towns?
In campaigning, meeting the people, the different types of people, like if you're campaigning out in the country or campaigning in town, it's really an experience, and it's a wonderful experience because you get to meet the taxpayers and you get to talk to them. I remember one time I knocked on the door and this gentleman came out. It was over in the Gravette area, and we talked for a little bit, and he said, well, now I just want to ask you a question. When, let's say you win, and then you decide later on that you're going to retire or you're going to do something else. He said, I know a lady that I want to run for that office. And I said, well, who is that? Well, it was Stephanie, and Stephanie's still working in our Gravette office. But he wanted to make sure I took care of Stephanie. So, and then one time I knocked on a door, and this lady came, and she had a dog. And that dog was just ferocious. But she finally did get him under control. But you have to be careful with those dogs because they can be dangerous. But it's just a challenge. But it's exciting because, like I mentioned previously, you get to meet those people and you get to talk to them. And lots of times we would spend like 30 minutes at one house just visiting, you know. And they will tell you different things, like they'll say, well, I'm going to vote for you because you've got on red, white, and blue. Or I'm going to vote for you because you are Republican or you are Democrat. And they just share their thoughts with you, and it's interesting.
Are any of the questions really related to the office or politics, or are they just more personal stuff? What do they ask you about?
The questions that they would ask, I think most of them were related to you personally, some to them, and very few I found were basically about the office. But I would always bring the office up because that's what I was a candidate for, and that was the reason that I was there. So I always made sure that, you know, that we talked about the office and made sure that I shared with them what my plans were for that position if I were to be elected. So that I just wanted that to be, you know, plain.
Let's talk about the change in politics in Benton County, because Benton County kind of led the state in the so-called switch from blue to red, and it was kind of at the time, roughly a little bit after Reagan had been elected. And so let's talk about when you ran for office, and then how, you know, the county was changing. That's kind of a broad question, but do the best you can with it.
Okay. Well, you know, when I first came here, it was very apparent that there was a lot of Democrats in office, and it was basically Democrat territory here in Benton County and the other counties. But whenever, I think it was when Joe Yates came in as assessor, we really started to see a change. And a lot of people moved in to Bella Vista, and they were Republican. So that seemed to make a change as well. And I remember we said we all sort of came in on George Bush's coattails, and that's really true.
So what was it like being involved, one of the first Republican officials in? I mean, does Democrat, Republican really an issue in county government?
being a Republican or a Democrat at first was really an issue because most of the elected officials were Democrat. So the few of us that were Republican coming in, it was a little difficult. But as we worked together and we all became friends, and it really didn't make a difference until election time. But yeah, it was a little tough at first.
So talk about the change over time. And well, let me ask this: who are some of those early county officials you remember that were elected as Republicans?
Okay, the first ones that I remember going back that were elected as Republicans was Joe Yates. He came in as assessor, and let me think. David Klinger came in. He was prosecutor. Sheriff, we had Roy Farber. And did I mention Mary Lou Slinkard? Okay. She came in as, she was elected as county clerk. That was really a big start right there, was when Mary Lou was elected. And of course Mary Lou ran for different offices on to become state representative, and of course Mary Lou always won. She was a great candidate.
What was she like as a person?
Mary Lou was, she was a great person. She and I had a lot of fun working as elected officials together. We just became good friends and remained good friends, worked together for years.
Let's talk about some of the judges that you've known over the years. You said that you've been here how long and known how many judges, roughly?
When I first came into office, Rayleigh Steele was our county judge. And I've gone through, 10 county judges. So went from Rayleigh Steele to Barry Mooring, who's our current county judge. So went through quite a few.
So talk about, are there any of them that stand out that in your memories? You can't really go over all of them probably, but talk about some of the ones that stand out for their performance over the years.
The county judges that stand out that I've worked with over the years are Al Norwood. I remember, of course, Al was Democrat, but that didn't make any difference. We became friends right off, and Al became friends with all of the elected officials, and he just had such a great personality. And I remember one day we were in the original courthouse, and Al came over and he said, "See all that wood out there, that paneling in the main floor there on the courthouse?" He said, "I want to paint that." And oh, that wood was so beautiful. I said, "Al, please don't paint that wood and cover up that. It's so beautiful." He said, "No, I want to paint that." Well, of course, he painted it. But we just, even though we might have those little differences, it really didn't matter, you know. We were great friends, worked together, had a great time. Then Gary Black came in, and Gary was a great county judge, had a great personality. Gary came from Walmart, and we all grew to love Gary. And then we had, Dave Bisbee came in, and then we had David Kleinert, and Barry Mooring is our current county judge. And Barry's a great county judge. He's easy to work with, and I think Barry's very intelligent, and I enjoy working with him.
Well, how has the tremendous growth of the county affected your office?
Well, you know, Benton County has grown, and it just seemed like overnight that this has happened to us, and it's so different, such a massive growth, and it's so quickly, it seems, that it took place. But we have, of course, more parcels, and we see that land and homes are selling for such an increased value. Like, it's just nothing to see a piece of land with an older house on it go for like $2.6 million. And we're just like, is this for real? And yes, it's for real. It's happening right here in Benton County. So it's astounding what's going on. But we enjoy it. And of course, the revenue that's coming in has increased drastically as well, because the appraised values of everything have increased. So we have more tax statements, and we've worked through that, we've managed that well. So the growth hasn't really affected the collector's office as much as it probably has the assessor's office. But we work closely with the assessor's office, so it's been a challenge, but we've managed to make it.
Well, good. You've worked with a lot of these county officials around here for years, ones that have been here a long time. Let's talk about your longtime friends / cohorts in the county.
The elected officials that I've worked with over the years have been, we've made some lasting friendships, with them. I remember campaigning with Judge Robin Green. We became great friends, and we still are. And Solly Duncan, she's one of our judges, enjoyed our relationship. Mary Lou Slinkard, Deanna Ratcliffe, and a lot of us have just remained friends, through the years. Brenda DeShields. So we have some lasting friendships that are just special.
Talk about your staff. You've got a real dedicated professional staff here. Who are some of the ones that stand out over the years that have worked hard here?
The staff that I have in the collector's office, I'm telling you, they're unique. They're great. They support me, and I just cannot say enough good things about my staff. My assistant is Tommy Hardwick. She's out today, but she's been great. Have Carol Cowell, who works with IT and with our business accounts, and she's great. And we have Frances out here in the front, which I think you might be talking with a little bit later. She's lived in Benton County forever, and she knows everybody. She'll come to me during the day sometimes, and she'll say, so-and-so and so-and-so, and did you hear what happened? And so she keeps me up to date on all these people that, that I've known for years that maybe I haven't heard from or talked to lately.
We talked earlier about politics, but when people come into the office, does that really ever come up? I mean, is this a political office once you get in it?
Not really, no. And I don't want it to be as far as the taxpayers go, because it doesn't matter if they're independent, Republican, or Democrat. They're all the same, and we treat them all the same. So I don't want that to have anything to do with that.
What about you mentioned some of the judges. What about some of the other politicians that you've known over the years? People like there's the state's top politicians are essentially all from Benton County. You've got, or most of them, John Bozeman, Steve Womack, Asa Hutchison. Did you know these guys? If so, tell me a little about them.
Concerning the state politicians that we have in office right now.
Yeah.
Yes, I've known Asa for many years. In fact, he campaigned with us sometimes when we were running for office. And Steve Womack, great friends with Steve, and John Bozeman. John helps us a lot with our veterans right now. He's very active, him and Steve both, with veterans. So sometimes, when a veteran has an issue and needs some help, then we'll call their office and they will help them.
You mentioned Congressman Womack. Do you know his father, Kermit, of Kerm Radio?
Oh, yes.
Tell me about him. Tell me about the Colonel.
in regards to Kermit, you know, he's connected to, he owns Kermit radio station. And even when we were campaigning, we would go over there and work with him, you know, to do our radio advertising. It's a small world. Currently, I have Kermit's daughter working in our Rogers office. And so that just, she applied for a position here. And when I saw her previous name, I'm going, Womack, I wonder if they are related. Well, sure enough, they are. So it's neat to have her work here and be related to Steve and Kermit.
Does he broadcast any of the county events? I know, or quorum court meetings? I know he does a lot of stuff at the schools in the cities. Does he do county government?
In regards to Kermit doing county government, I really do not know that answer. I really don't know.
Anyway, who else can you think of around the courthouse over the years? Oh, let me ask, what about, did you ever know any of the, do you get to know the lawyers in here, in this office? Probably not as much.
In county government, we do have a relationship with the county attorney. So they help us a lot with legal decisions and the legality of what we should do and what we should not do.
Well, tell me about your county attorneys.
So at one time, Robin Green was county attorney, so I enjoyed working with her in that position. Currently, we have George Spence is our county attorney, and we really enjoy working with George. As you can see over here, I have a little sign up with George's name on it. And he kept coming in to help us out when I first came in this office, this collector. And he would sit in different chairs. And so one day he said something about his chair. And I thought, well, you know what? He does need his own chair. So this chair over here is George's chair when he comes in to help us.
Good. Is there anything else about your office or the courthouse maybe that you are interesting that I haven't thought to ask about, or any stories you want to share?
I think you've covered it pretty well. You know, we did talk about campaigning, and I did fail to mention something that we all did when we were campaigning, and that is we all had something to give away to the taxpayers. And I have this fan here, and I always tried to think, what do we give away that they could use and that they would keep? And one day I thought, when I was running in '74, I thought about a fan. So we were out campaigning and it would be hot. So I gave away fans. And on one side of this fan, I had the picture of the courthouse, and it told when the courthouse was, when Benton County came into existence, and the year that I was campaigning, picture of the courthouse. It says the first courthouse in Benton County was erected in 1837, and it was occupied on the same site that our current courthouse is, and it was made out of logs, and the county was created in 1836 and named for Thomas Hart Benton. So then on this side was my personal information. But that was something that everybody enjoyed getting, was something that they could use and keep. So I always tried to think of something useful. Like one year, I had two opponents, 2 different times. So one of those times I gave away little notepads, little sticky notepads, and those were really useful. And the other time I gave away fly swatters. So, like I said, I always tried to think of something that everybody could use. And when I was going through my campaign box looking for all these items, I did come across some emery boards that Asa had given away. So I have a collection of buttons with different names on them, you know, that candidates were running for office. But it was so much fun running for office. It's different now because of electronics, you know, and so anyway, it's been a great ride.
Good. If somebody came to you who had never been to Benton County, and they said, "Hey, tell me about Benton County. What's it like?" What would you tell them?
Benton County it's a wonderful county. Arkansas is a wonderful state. I can't think of another place that I would want to live. And I would just share with newcomers that come in how wonderful it is. It's beautiful. We have so much here to enjoy. You know, we have the museum, and it's great. People are wonderful. They're friendly. They accept people that are coming here, and we always try to help them. We have veterans that come here from different counties or different states, and we always try to work with them because, you know, if you're 100% disabled and you have your proper papers from the VA, then you are exempt from your taxes. So we really enjoy working with the veterans to help them get set up in Benton County. And we've even gone to their homes if they're unable, to come in. So it's really been a pleasure working with veterans, but it's a pleasure working with all the taxpayers. One time we had a taxpayer come in at the counter, and the lady was explaining to him about his taxes. He said, "Well, I never would have thunk that." And I heard him, and I thought, I've never heard that word. So there's lots of laughs, lots of enjoyment from the people that come in. And we still have taxpayers come in that we've met over the years. We've made friends with them. And they come in and visit, It's a great joy.
One last question. Complete this sentence. My favorite thing about Benton County is...
It would be hard for me to come up with my favorite thing about Benton County. It would be really hard because there's so many favorite things. I just love it. Just love it.